A giant honor for a future Tiger. We've got all the deets. It's Locked on LSU. Here we go.
You are Locked on LSU, your daily podcast on the LSU Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Okay, let's get it. It is Locked on LSU, your team every day. I'm your host, Matt Moscona. Thanks so much for making us your first listen. We are free, available wherever you get podcasts. Of course, on YouTube as well, so please subscribe. As always, one of the fastest ways to help us grow is by leaving your comments below. Today's episode brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. We got a ton to get to today, some baseball and some football. We're going to start with a gigantic honor for a future LSU Tiger that we'll get to. Also, disappointing recruiting news for a Louisiana kid who's not going to come to LSU, and Garrett Nussmeier chasing a different kind of ring. All that on today's episode. So thank you so much for being with us here. Hey, let's start with Malachi Washington. That's a name you probably don't know yet, but will in time. So Malachi Washington is a 2026 prospect who is committed to the LSU baseball program. He committed in December of 2024. So just about 6-7 months ago, he committed to LSU. And Malachi Washington is out of Georgia, the Atlanta area, and he is one of the top prospects for the 2026 class. So he's a rising senior, just finished his junior year in high school, going into his senior year, meaning he would sign and join LSU for 2026, 2027 school year, meaning the 2027 college baseball season. Of course, being that he's a rising senior, he'll play the 2026 season in Georgia as a high school senior, and then he'll enroll at LSU in the fall of 26, but be there for the season of 2027. That's provided he makes it to campus. Well, the great news for Malachi Washington, and we send our congratulations, is that he was named the National Underclass Player of the Year by Perfect Game. What an absolutely incredible honor. You're talking about quite literally the best player in the country as determined by Perfect Game for his class. As a high school junior, he hit 538. Say that again, 538 as a high school junior. 15 homers, 59 RBI. Oh my goodness. And he can play darn near anywhere in the field. 6'1", 185. He has played in the outfield. He has played in the middle infield. He even pitches for his team there in Georgia. When you look at the Perfect Game profile, keep in mind, this isn't going to be impressive in the context of big leaguers or even major college players like a Chase Shores, for example. But his fastball velo is at 82 miles an hour. You might say 82. That's not very good. He's a high school junior throwing 82 miles an hour. That's only going to continue to tick up. His infield velo, so when he fields a ground ball, throws it across the infield, is at 85, and his outfield velo is at 88. So fields the ball in the outfield, hums it back in, 88 miles an hour. You were talking about a truly special prospect. Now, I know what everyone's initial reaction is. You hear those stats, you hear a guy that's the National Underclass Player of the Year, and you think immediately, he'll never show up on campus. And you might be right. There are tons of examples of Connor Griffins out there who never show up on campus. Connor Griffin was the 9th overall pick. Look, he was committed to LSU early in his high school career out of Mississippi, Hattiesburg. He was committed to LSU. A guy who loved LSU very much. And depending on how the whole draft scenario went, might have ended up on campus with the right NIL deal that could have made sense. But Ended up being the 9th pick of the draft, and now he's one of the top prospects in the Pirates farm, maybe the top prospect in the Pirates farm system, and is fast-tracked toward the big leagues. So made sense for Connor Griffin. But for every Connor Griffin, there's a ton of examples of Alex Bregman. And if you remember Bregman's old high school scenario, his thing was he was playing catcher and broke his thumb, missed the bulk of his high school senior season, told every MLB team, if I'm not a first-round pick, I'm not signing. Didn't go in round 1, came to LSU. Wore number 30 initially in representing the 30 teams that passed on him. It worked. By the way, on Sunday, Alex Bregman was named to the NL All-Star team, so congrats to Alex Bregman for that. Dylan Cruz was another great example of that. Dylan Cruz was, at the time, the highest rated high school prospect ever to show up on LSU's campus. It worked out. He ended up being the number 2 overall pick, won a national championship, and he's already in the big leagues. Now, Cruz was the highest rated prospect ever to show up on campus until a lefty named Cam Johnson, who just a couple of years later showed up on LSU's campus. Now, it didn't work out for Cam Johnson. He passed on big-time money, came to LSU, didn't really find his accuracy after 1 year transferred to Oklahoma. Didn't really work out for him as a sophomore at Oklahoma either. We'll see what happens in his career. But the point is, you've seen big-time talents. Derek Curiel was a giant talent that showed up on campus. Cade Arambidi. Cade Arambidi was the number 1 catching prospect in America, was thought to be a surefire guy that was going to sign his contract coming out of high school, struggled offensively his senior year, dropped down some draft boards, ends up on LSU's campus. William Schmidt. William Schmidt passed on nearly $3 million because he wanted to play for LSU. So my point is, yes, there's a ton of examples of Connor Griffins, guys that are highly touted prospects that don't pass on the money. Take it and go start their career. But for every Connor Griffin, there's an Alex Bregman, a Dylan Cruz, a Derek Curiel, a Cam Johnson, a Cade Arambidi, a William Schmidt. And we don't know how it's going to go, but a guy you need to know, a name you need to know if you're an LSU fan, is Malachi Washington. Because when you start to look to 2027, remember, Derek Curiel is a draft-eligible sophomore, so the 26th season will be his last. Jake Brown will be back as a junior in 2026, his draft year. He'll be gone. Ethan Fry, presuming he's back, is your starting left fielder in 2026. He'd also be gone, meaning in 2027, you would be replacing your entire starting outfield. So a guy like Malachi Washington would have an amazing opportunity to step in immediately. NIL, rev share, immediately starting at a place like LSU. You bypass the bus rides as a minor leaguer. You play for a chance to go to Omaha, win a national championship, and fast-track yourself to Major League Baseball. A name to know, Malachi Washington, the National Underclass Player of the Year from Perfect Game. Congrats to the LSU commit. We'll follow him, certainly, over the next 12 months. It is Locked on LSU, your team every day. Have you ever decided at the last minute to head to a ball game with friends or family? Oh, I've done that so many times. Maybe it's game day, and you suddenly realize you want to be in the stands. That's exactly where Gametime comes in. It's the easiest way to grab last-minute tickets without the stress. With money you save on tickets, maybe you splurge. Food, drinks, that extra brat, hot dog, merch. Maybe you invite a bigger group to the game to go with you, and Gametime makes all of that possible. Gametime makes buying tickets fast and simple. Prices on the app drop the closer you get to first pitch. They've got incredible last-minute deals. They've got clear seat views and the lowest price guarantee that takes the worrying out of buying. And Gametime is the official ticketing partner of Locked on MLB, making it easy to browse the app for an exciting upcoming MLB game. I told you a couple of weeks ago, I was in Boston for Yankees Red Sox. Got on a flight from New Orleans to Boston without tickets. Me, my brother-in-law, and my nephew bought tickets at a bar outside of Fenway less than an hour before first pitch because the ticket prices kept dropping. Boom, we were in the second row next to the Red Sox dugout. Check my Instagram if you don't believe me. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem with the code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. We've talked so much about the great news that LSU has gotten in recruiting for football. Certainly on the 4th of July, popping not one but two commits. But one of the players we've been keeping an eye on is Boobie Feaster, and it did not go LSU's way. Over the weekend, Boobie Feaster, the talented wide receiver originally from Louisiana who currently plays in DeSoto, Texas, announced his commitment to USC. He's a four-star, took an official visit to USC early in June, had also been on campus at LSU. He took officials to Texas A&M and to LSU in addition to Southern Cal, but early June is when it kind of looked like it might have been trending towards Southern Cal, and ultimately Feaster picked LSU. This was the thing that really got me. Quote, this was at On3, by the way. So On3 has this quote from Boobie Feaster, and he said, quote, "I got a little source I talked to a lot, Jakeem Stewart. So that's my guy. He's from Louisiana, so he's just like me. I talked to him a good amount." Also talked about Lincoln Riley. Quote, "That's my guy. Probably calls me almost every day." I mean, almost every day. He's got who I feel is the best slot in the 2026 class in Trent Mosley. Also, one of the best quarterbacks in the country, Jonas Williams. And they built a great class for 2026. So this is, it's certainly disappointing. So Feaster, 6'1", 175. He's a four-star, the number 45 overall player in the country, the fifth best wide receiver. Rivals rates him as a five-star, the number 3 wide receiver in America. So you're talking about a truly elite level talent, and LSU was in on him, and ultimately he picked Southern Cal. The interesting thing to me here, though, is him talking about the Jakeem Stewart angle. Now, remember, if I go back and remind you about what happened with Jakeem Stewart, if you're an everydayer, you'll remember this from this recent signing class. And Stewart was similar, right? He's a kid from New Orleans who reclassified from 2026 to 2025 and was the number 1 defensive lineman in the country for 2026, reclassified to 2025, and was a guy who didn't play his freshman season of high school because he moved to St. Aug, played his sophomore year at St. Aug, then missed his junior year because in the attempt to reclassify, moved to Edna Carr, but was ineligible because of the reclassification. So he played 1 year of high school football, 1 year, but was a physical athletic freak, went to all the elite camps and all that sort of stuff. I've seen videos of him on social media working out with Aaron Donald out in L.A., but what it came down to is that Southern Cal gave him $2 million a year. We told you about this when it happened. And you can choose to believe me or not. It's up to you. But I've been right on everything when it comes to NIL. I'm the one who broke the thing about Bryce Underwood getting $12 million from Larry Ellison. I'm the first one who gave you the number. It's just a thing where when NIL was coming into practice in July of 2021, I was doing a podcast with the folks from Match Point, my buddy Jonathan Pixley and I. And as a result of doing that show, on the very front end of NIL, we got plugged into a lot of different NIL circles. John Ruiz, the billionaire booster at Miami, came on our show. I talked to heads of collectives and head coaches and boosters and athletes and everybody. And as a result, just had a really good connection and finger on the pulse of everything going on with NIL. And so when you look at what happened with Stewart, it was very obvious. Frank Wilson was integral in getting him reclassified from 2026 to 2025 and getting him eligible. But Southern Cal offered him $2 million a year when LSU's offer topped out at 1.2. And so, despite the fact that California's state income taxes are atrocious, I'm sure Jakeem Stewart is learning that now, or will come April. He took the better deal, and it's hard to blame anybody. That's a significant amount of money, and I wouldn't blame anybody for taking that significant amount of money. But it's similar. It's clear something similar happened here. And there's two parts of it. It's the financial component and the on-field component. The on-field component is this. When you look to 2026, LSU is going to have a big turnover at receiver, right? I mean, Aaron Anderson will be gone. Xavier Thomas will be gone. Nick Anderson, who you just brought in, will be gone. Berrien Brown will be gone. A giant chunk of your pass catchers will be gone after 2025. So someone like Feaster in the 2026 class would have been massive. Also, of course, Garrett Nussmeier will be gone as well. So you're going to have a massive overhaul at quarterback and at receiver in 2026 after this 2025 season. Now, the good news for LSU is you've recruited exceptionally well at receiver. The number one receiver in America for 2026, Tristan Keys, is currently committed to LSU. Now, you got to keep him. You got to get him across the finish line come December. But when you miss on a guy like Feaster, it makes it even more important that you maintain that commitment from a guy like Keys and keep him in this class, because he could be an immediate plug-and-play impact guy in 2026. You've got Kenny Darby. You've got Jabari Mack. I mean, you've got a significant receiver class already committed for 2026, but a guy like Feaster is someone who could have stepped in theoretically and been an immediate impact guy, because that's going to be a major position of need in 2026 when you look at the turnover. And quite honestly, this is going to be a familiar conversation we have with every position for LSU in 2026, because this team is so all in for 2025 that you look at what's ahead, and it's going to be a challenge to rebuild this roster. I mean, Garrett Nussmeier will be gone in 26. The two offensive linemen you brought in that are mercenaries, Braylon Moore, Josh Thompson, they're both going to be gone. Bauer Sharp, the tight end you brought in from Oklahoma, he's going to be gone. We just mentioned the receivers, Aaron Anderson, Nick Anderson, Berrien Brown, Xavier Thomas. They'll all be gone after 2025. That's just the offensive side of the ball. We haven't even looked at defense and what it's going to look like over there. But the point being, 2026, there's going to be a real opportunity for anybody, freshman, transfer, whoever comes in, for immediate playing time. That's something LSU could have sold to Feaster, the opportunity to play in his home state. He's prepping in DeSoto now, but he's from Louisiana, family in Louisiana. What pulled him away? Loves LSU. They were recruiting him hard. All the ties to the state. What the opportunity to get on the field? What's the thing that could have pulled him away? NIL rev share. So it's still going to be one of those things that you're going to have to play out. And LSU might be looking in the portal for receivers in 2026, depending on how all this plays out. Okay, it is Locked on LSU, your team every day. Feaster does not pick LSU. He'll be at Southern Cal. The other sort of disappointing news for LSU is over the weekend that one of the top offensive linemen in the country, Emmanuel Iheanacho, out of Maryland, who was at one point a Maryland commit, picked Oregon over the weekend. Iheanacho will not be an LSU Tiger. LSU was in on this one late, and it was considered a long shot that Oregon was there, right there, but it was Oregon, Maryland, his home state school, Penn State, Auburn, but LSU was in there, and LSU was working really hard at it. They got an official visit from Emmanuel Iheanacho, 6'7", 380. Let me say that again, 6'7", 380. A 5-star, the number 4 overall prospect in the country, the number 2 offensive tackle. He's only the number 2 offensive tackle because the number 1 overall player in the country is Jackson Cantwell, an offensive tackle who picked Miami. So Emmanuel Iheanacho, 5-star offensive tackle. LSU was in on him to the very end, but ultimately he ends up picking Oregon in this recruiting cycle. So a couple of guys that LSU was in on decide on other schools over the weekend, but the Tigers did pop a couple of commits on the 4th of July. Tigers with a top 5 class right now and still very much honing in on potentially the number 1 overall class in the country when you start to build that class beyond the 14 commits they presently have. Just for example, I'll just do this very, very, very quickly. LSU has 14 commits right now. When you look at the team rankings, the number 1 class in the On3 composite is Southern Cal. They have 31. Georgia is number 2 with 27. Texas A&M is number 3 with 24. Then Notre Dame with 25. Then Bama with 18. Ohio State with 21. Then there's LSU with 14. What that tells you, quality over quantity. When the quantity picks up, how high can LSU go? It'll be interesting to see. Okay, we'll grab our final break of the show, and a big congrats to Garrett Nussmeier. We will offer those congratulations as we wrap up next Locked On LSU, your team every day. It is my great pleasure to continue to remind you about Our Lady of the Lake, the championship health partner of LSU athletics. You know who's taking care of LSU's top athletes? Well, it's Our Lady of the Lake. That same level of care is available to you and me. As a matter of fact, this past week I was off of work, and on Wednesday I was over at Our Lady of the Lake for my annual physical with the Our Lady of the Lake Men's Health Group. I trust Our Lady of the Lake for my personal care. My son, Drew, we've seen many specialists at Our Lady of the Lake Children's Hospital. Dr. Shaw is amazing. He's the neurologist that we see. And it doesn't matter if it's the Our Lady of the Lake Standalone Children's Hospital, the Men's Health Group that I'm a member of, or student athletes at LSU or students on campus. We're talking game-changing care that keeps athletes at their best, builds a stronger, healthier Louisiana for all of us. Because this partnership isn't just about LSU sports. Make no mistake, Our Lady of the Lake is a massive, massive beneficiary of LSU athletics. I should say LSU athletics is a massive beneficiary of their relationship with Our Lady of the Lake. But it's about caring for all of us. It's about creating opportunity, leading the next generation of healthcare talent right here at home. So whether you're on the field, you're in the stands, or you're just doing life, know that championship level healthcare is right here for you. You can learn more online at ololrmc.com/LSU. One more time, ololrmc.com/LSU. Our Lady of the Lake and LSU. Together, we roar. How about a big congratulations to Garrett Nussmeier, the LSU starting quarterback? On social media over the weekend on 4th of July, announced his engagement to his girlfriend, Ella Springfield. In a series of Instagram posts, I did write about this over at LouisianaSports.net. You can go check out Nuss on Instagram or Ella Springfield on Instagram, or you can look at LouisianaSports.net. You can see it right there. But they announced their engagement on Saturday with Garrett Nussmeier. Pop at the question and put a big old rock on Ella's hand. If you're curious, Nuss is 23 years old, entering, of course, his 5th season with the Tigers. Springfield is from Dallas, but also an LSU alum. Great photo of the two of them in their caps and gowns in Tiger Stadium with Garrett cradling Ella, who's holding her degree. But a great time in life for the young couple. I know the very obvious question that I think a lot of you are going to ask, which is, okay, is this a distraction for Nussmeier entering his 5th season at LSU, his senior year, 2nd year as a starter? Now he's engaged. Is this going to take away from the football component? I think it's a very natural question to ask and a good question to ask, because I think when we've looked at these LSU quarterbacks that we've compared Nuss to, they've had no other distractions. Let me explain. I'm not saying that this engagement is a distraction. Let me further explain. When Zach Mettenberger became the starter at LSU in 2012, it was a struggle for the bulk of the season, and then in November, he kicked and was great. In 2013, I can't tell you how many times you'd see Mettenberger show up to football ops with his venti Starbucks and his flip-flops going to watch film. I mean, he had one online course that he was taking, basket weaving or whatever it was. He was a full-time football student. Same thing with Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow was taking online classes in 2019, his second year as the starter, his fifth year in college, his final season at LSU, and it was very clear that became his life. Jaden Daniels in 2023. The story's been told plenty now, but LSU has the VR. They have what they call the Ready Room, right? And the media, when we go into football ops for press conferences, we pass right by this room. So I've seen it a million times. I mean, it's probably 10 yards deep, maybe 15, 20 yards wide. And you could stand in the middle of it. You're looking at a screen, you put on the VR goggles, and you're simulating a play. So Jaden Daniels, they gave him his own key card to the building, and he would go there at 5 a.m, and he would just watch film all day, and he'd wear the VR goggles. He would simulate the game. And it showed, didn't it? I mean, all those guys had this massive parabolic run-up. So I think it's fair to ask, well, we're all thinking the same thing for Nuss, but could there be distractions with his personal life? I personally don't think that. I'll give you an example of a great former Tiger, Jacob Hester, who's my colleague at 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Hester was married for the 2007 season. He was already married to his wife, Katie. They're married today with 5 children. They're amazing people. Point is, you live that life, and people know how to prioritize. And I don't doubt Garrett Nussmeier at all when he's been around football his entire life, with his dad being a football coach and knowing what's on the line this year for him, not only personally, but professionally in the future and all that stuff. So congratulations to Garrett Nussmeier and Ella Springfield on their engagement as we inch closer to the start of the college football season. We'll be talking about it right here on Locked On LSU. Thanks for making us your first listen. Subscribe on your favorite podcast app. Rate us, leave a review. If you're on YouTube, smash the like button, subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell so you're notified whenever we post a new video. Let a friend know that they love the Tigers. We got you every single day for Locked On LSU, your team every day.